Yes,
very
ma'am.
clear
Please keep your mask on and sit in your designated areas. I thank you. The last item on today's order paper is questions addressed to ministers in Cluster 4, Economics. There are 4 supplementary questions on each question. Parties have given an indication of which questions their members wish to pose a supplementary question. Adequate notice was given to parties for this purpose. This was done to facilitate participation of members who are connecting to the sitting through the virtual platform. The members who will pose supplementary questions will be recognized by the presiding officer. In allocating opportunities for supplementary questions, the principle of fairness, amongst others, has been applied. If a member who is supposed to ask a supplementary question through the virtual platform is unable to do so due to technological difficulties, the party whip on duty will be allowed to ask the question on behalf of the member. When all the supplementary questions have been answered by the executive, we will proceed to the next question on the question paper. The first question has been asked by the Honorable A. Stein to the Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. I'm informed that the Minister will be answering questions from the chamber. The Honorable, the Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and thanks to the members of Parliament, particularly the ones who have asked questions on the Department of Agriculture. Firstly, Madam Speaker, before I speak, as a department, we're very saddened about the incidents of farm killings that we've experienced over the past few months. Indeed, this is a loss to the sector, not only to the families and friends, but also it has got an impact in the food security of our country, but also to the workers who are working in the farms. I must also say that we're saddened this morning to hear of the passing away of one of our members in the avocado industry, who has been working for the Avocado Association and really trying to transform this industry so that it can be inclusive. And we really want to say to the family, Kasizwe agwehlanga lungehlanga. I also know, Honorable Member, yesterday we had an incident where 2 farm workers and other 3 people were in other car were actually, who lost their lives rather as a result of an accident. And Deputy Minister Skwatsha is there in the French Hook to meet the families of those farm workers who were affected. Again, sithi kulabo bemindeni akwehlanga lungehlanga nalabo abasesibhedlela sithembe ukuthi bazawululama. The answer to the question asked by Honorable Stein in respect of the database of all land under the custodianship of the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development is that we do have a database on the land that is under our custodianship. The Immovable Asset Register is a management tool that we use for the purposes of recording the description of all immovable assets, as well as the location, ownership details, quantity, and certain financial information relating to these assets. The Immovable Asset Register is managed within our policy and for the purposes of ensuring accountability and control in order to achieve accurate financial reporting. Some of these lands referred to by Honorable Stein is that land that was under the South African Development Trust of the old, land under various homelands, KwaZulu-Natal, Gazankulu, Lebua, Kangwane, KwaNdebele, Transkei, Bophuthatswana, Venda, and Ciskei. I want to indicate that some of the immovable assets which are assigned or vested in other authorities in terms of specific legislation, therefore do not form part of our register. That is the answer to the question as asked by Honorable Stein. Thank you very much.
The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable A. Stein through the virtual platform.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Minister, for the answer. Minister, firstly, we share your concerns and also sending our deepest sympathy and condolences to the families that have lost people on farms and farm workers. Minister, thank you for the answer. I was hoping that that is the answer because I expect the department to have a database. What I can't understand, Minister, is I've been asking your department to get access to the database so that we can look and visit farms to see what is happening on these farms. On the 15th of June, I was then forced to fill in a PIA application request to get this database. I still haven't received it. I also did not get any indication that I can't receive it. I said I will go there myself and take the information if it's too big to email to me. Are you deliberate in keeping the country and myself in the dark about the 9.8 million hectares under custodianship of your department? If not, why am I not receiving the information? Thank you, Speaker.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Stein. Indeed, I'm not sure why you are not receiving that information. We will indeed follow up because this is public information that is accessible to members of parliament, but also to members of public. And as I indicated, the types of land that are under our custodianship, in addition to those, are the farms that we have actually leased to the respective farmers under the 30-year lease through the proactive land acquisition system. I commit to this parliament through the Speaker that indeed we will follow up and you will receive that database that you have asked for, and would also communicate with you and the Portfolio Committee in this regard. Thank you very much.
The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Z.M.D. Mandela from the Chamber.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Minister, likewise, the ANC sends its condolences to those that have lost their loved ones over the recent past. Honorable Minister, the Land Audit Report of 2018 reveals that most of the communal land under traditional leaders or land in the former homelands or Bantustans has not been properly surveyed. What progress, if any, has the IMC on immovable assets achieved in ensuring that all land under state custodianship is properly surveyed and classified or categorized? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mandela. As you indicate correctly, so this is one of the issues that has been discussed by the Interministerial Committee on Land and Agriculture, chaired by the Deputy President, Mr. Didi Mabuza. The work that we are currently doing, working with the Surveyor General's Office, is to really undertake this work that you say it must be done, to look at the parameters of that land. But what we've also done is to amend the Deeds Registry Act so that it can allow for the recording of all land in South Africa, particularly that in the communal areas. I must say that one province that has gone a bit further in this regard is the province of KwaZulu-Natal as a result of the Ingonyama Trust land. That part of, I would say a majority of that land under Ingonyama Trust has actually been surveyed, not all, and that's one of the work that is continuing. One of the issues we are dealing with is actually having consultations with the traditional leaders and their communities in respect of tenure reform. Deputy Minister Skwatsha actually last week was meeting with the House of Traditional Leaders in the Eastern Cape, and in the coming week, he will be in KwaZulu-Natal meeting with the House there, because our view remains that we need to actually formalize the tenure security of all people in rural communities. Thank you very much, sir.
The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable T. Briet through the virtual platform.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And on behalf of the Freedom Front Plus, I would also like to offer our condolences to those farming families that have lost dear ones. The Minister said, and it is a great loss to agriculture. Honourable Minister, my question is, how much of this land in custodianship is arable and under production with tenants leasing from government? And would it not be better if this land would be released to these tenants with title deeds? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Speaker and honorable members. Indeed, the land that is arable out of the land that is in the custodianship of the state is minimal. As we would all appreciate that the then apartheid government, when it actually dealt with the issue of the land question, it moved more of the African communities to arid lands in the former homelands. A lot of that land, that's where you'll find a lot of degradation because of overgrazing and overpopulation. So the minuscule land that is actually there that is farmable, it's what has been through the proactive land acquisition. And I agree with you, Honorable Briet. It's something that as a state we need to look at whether or not is it worth keeping that land under leasehold, or we should actually transfer that land to the various farmers that have been given the land. But at the same time, the minimal land that is under communal land, I think the responsibility that we all have, particularly led by government, working with communities, it's how we assist communities in communal areas to continue to farm that land so that they can provide their household food security. This will require input support, implements so that that land can be farmed, as well as irrigation infrastructure in areas where such land can be irrigated. But what is also more important is to make sure that we rehabilitate that land that can still be brought back to grazing in order to manage that land effectively and to the best for the communities concerned. Thank you very much.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable M.E. Soekers through the virtual platform.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to join my colleagues in conveying the ACDP's condolences to those farming communities who has lost members. The question of a database of all land under state custodianship is an important one, Minister, particularly since it has been reported that 80 to 90% of land claimants opted for cash payments instead of land. Can the Minister inform this House from the database what percentage of land claimed is still productive versus that which is lying fallow, and what interventions are there to assist, skill, and upgrade the emerging Black farmers whose land has been restored to him or her? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, as well as Honorable Member who asked this question. One cannot have the exact numbers given that one did not have the question prior. However, as an estimate, one could say about 80% of land that has been transferred to communities who have opted for land, where particularly for agricultural development, is actually not being productive. And there are varied reasons why that's the case. Some of it's because of the post-settlement support that has not been adequately given to those communities. Secondly, is as a result of tensions that sometimes occur among members of the community about the governance of the land, but also about the choices of how that land can be made to be productive. I do want to say that one of the things that we have committed ourselves as this government is to really find a way in which you can support those communities, not only in terms of conflict resolution where such conflict exists, but how we can actually assist them to farm that land productively. I must also say that some of the agribusiness industries have actually worked in partnership with some of those communities, and we've seen successes, which are actually positive. And we would like to also appeal to other private investors, but to work with community in an inclusive manner, but also which is beneficial to communities, not where communities will continuously being workers and the dividends are only received by those who are the investors. And I hope if we do this, we can actually make sure that that land is brought back to production. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. That brings us to the end of that question. Question number 163 has been asked by the Honorable S.N. Swart, Minister of Finance. I've been informed that the Minister will be answering questions through the virtual platform. The Honorable the Minister. I'm sorry, Minister, I hear you've muted yourself. Please unmute.
Sorry, Madam Speaker. I said I need to, in answering this question, put a couple of qualifications. The first one is that it's too early we're just a month or so away from the incident. It's too early to give accurate figures. Secondly, the actual details we'll hear from the state essay when they release the third quarter figures. So whatever I'm going to say are going to be largely preliminary comments on it. The recent incidents of violence and looting in parts of Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal in July this year have had a crippling impact, not only on the economies of these two provinces, but also both on the South African and the SADC regional economy. It is expected to weigh on GDP growth in an otherwise modest recovering economy. Official statistics on the affected sectors covering the period of the unrest will be reflected, as I've said, in the third quarter GDP numbers. The estimated costs to the economy have widely varied, but the consensus estimate is about 50 billion rand. National Treasury suggests that unrest could have little under 1% point from the GDP growth in 2021. In addition, these impacts could be lasting as cost of the unrest on employment and sentiment could persist beyond 2021. This view is also reflected in the empirical literature, which estimates that economic impacts of unrest episodes linger with GDP potential trending 0.2 percentage points below the pre-shock unrest level for at least 6 quarters after the event. Business sentiment has been negatively affected, translating into a stall in investment activity and affecting the spatial competitiveness of the South African economy. Value and supply chains have been disrupted in key sectors such as retail, financial services. They have led to a loss of revenue for property investors, retailers, manufacturers, pharmaceuticals, as well as revenue for state-owned enterprises such as Sandra and Transnet. Furthermore, additional costs will be incurred for rebuilding of the affected infrastructure, especially along the key N3 route. Furthermore, South Africa's risk premium, which had been trending downwards between March to June 2021, is likely to increase as a result of the unrest. Longer-term borrowing costs represented by long-term government bond yields have also remained elevated. Taken together, the unrest presents an untimely and negative shock to the South Africa's growth prospects. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable S.N. Swart through the virtual platform.
Thank you, Speaker. Honourable Minister, may I firstly congratulate you on your appointment as Minister of Finances. I believe this is your first appearance in Parliament, so welcome. The ACDP believes that the economy's relevant buoyant start to the year is likely to be very seriously affected by the combination of the renewed COVID-19 lockdown measures and the recent rioting and looting that took place in KZN and Gauteng. And Minister, you have correctly pointed quite a bleak picture of the economic outlook as a result of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng unrest. While the second quarter GDP grew by 1.2% on the new reporting methodology adopted by Stats SA, the impact on the unrest is, as you have indicated, still to be felt. But it is very clear that many ruined businesses in the two provinces are expected to take years to rebuild. And these two provinces contribute half of the country's GDP, with Durban being the gateway to the southern subcontinent and accounting for about 70% of South Africa's imports. Economists correctly, as you indicated, Minister, indicated the loss at about 50 billion rand. Now, you also indicated that we will only know when the third quarter GDP data comes out as to the extent. But I'm sure, Honourable Minister, maybe you could give me an indication that in all likelihood, the GDP growth will drop. And could you then give us an indication as what this impact will be on the medium-term outlook, as well as the impact on the unemployment rate, given that it has reached 34.4% in the second quarter? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Swartz. I've indicated in my initial response that we are expecting a 1 percentage point, less than 1 percentage point decline in GDP figures in the third quarter. Obviously, any decline in the growth output is likely to have a negative impact on unemployment as well. We will have together, as there's a subsequent question which is coming, which I'll have to deal with what measures need to be taken to deal with this issue. Thank you.
The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable MJ Maswanganyi from the virtual platform. Honorable Maswanganyi, unmute if you are muted. Honorable Maswanganyi. Chief Whip, are you ready to ask the question on behalf of?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you.
As a follow-up to the Minister, on behalf of Honorable Maswanganyi, Minister, many sectors of the economy here are in distress before the July unrest. Looking at the impact of damages caused by the unrest, what will your department and government in general do to rebuild and accelerate economic opportunities and transformation in a manner that will benefit everyone, in particular small businesses in distress in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng? I thank you, Speaker.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There are a couple of measures which are taking place. Part of it is that some of the business entities are insured, and our division, SASRIA, is assisting those companies that are insured to recover. A third component is that we have made appropriation via the Department of Trade and Industry and Corporation to cater for small and medium enterprise of about 3.9 billion rand, if I can't remember the figure right now, but it's above 3 billion. So that is intended also to deal with small and medium enterprises. But broadly, given the level of unemployment, we need to go beyond dealing with the current unrest and say, how do we make sure that we can ensure effective recovery for the economy beyond, even beyond the COVID-19 levels? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable D.T. George from the chamber.
Thank you, Speaker. I agree with the Minister that the actual cost has not yet become clear, given damage to supply chains and business confidence. It's likely hundreds of billions. The problem won't go away until the root cause is addressed. The unrest was triggered by a collapsing ANC. The former president of the party that facilitated the capture of the state refuses to testify, is jailed for contempt of court, and is now on so-called medical parole. Unrest broke out today in the Northwest province, again the result of an ANC faction fight. As the ANC collapses, it seems to want to burn our country down with it. Minister, what steps are you going to take to hold to account those responsible for the economic destruction that has been inflicted on our country? And insurance will not cover all of the costs. Will you be supplementing this shortfall to business? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't think I'm qualified to deal with Mr. George's assertion about the root causes of the problem. But what I need to do is to respond to two of his questions. The first one, what is going to be done with those who are looting? I think government is doing everything possible to ensure that they pursue those who are behind the destruction of property. That's the first point. The second point is that we cannot, I mean, he himself is actually attributed this thing to the African National Congress. And I think that's not what I'm up to. So government is pursuing those people who are responsible for the destruction of property. And that is going to be the main response.
Thank you, Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable KNF Hlonyana through the virtual platform. Honorable Hlonyana. Is there a replacement for the EFF? Seems
Honorable Chair, I will take it. Honorable Speaker, I will take it.
Thank you very much, Honorable.
I think the Honorable Sonia is suffering with network problems.
Thank you.
Minister, there is a perception which is likely based on a reality out there that the destruction of critical infrastructure such as schools and the rail network is carefully orchestrated sabotage by tenderpreneur fat cats who wants to get tenders to repair the very infrastructure that they have damaged. What control measures have National Treasury put in place to ensure that any contracts that may have been given out for the repair of these schools is not given to political connected business people and who may have caused the destructions in the first place? I thank you, Speaker.
The Honorable Minister.
No, there are a lot of stories that go around about what is the root cause of the unrest and looting. I leave that issue to the relevant authorities to investigate. It's not for me to say who those people are, what their orientation is. I cannot comment on that because there are law enforcement agencies who are trying to establish that. But insofar as contracts that are being awarded, in this country, in terms of Section 217 of the Constitution and the relevant legislation based on that constitutional provision, tenders and contracts are awarded on a competitive basis. And those people are awarded contracts on those bases. And that's the first point. The second point, Treasury does not award those tenders. It is the relevant institutions that award those tenders. Therefore, Treasury cannot be responsible for that. To the extent possible, Treasury is setting up the standards that are required to be followed by individuals. Where those standards are not followed, Treasury will take the appropriate action. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of that question. Question number 176 has been asked by the Honorable Zet Mlenzana to the Minister of Finance. The Honorable Minister.
Madam Speaker, the question really is not that National Treasury in isolation from the whole of government and in isolation from major efforts by all South Africans can ensure a recovery of this economy. Treasury will contribute a small part to that. I'm making that point first as a point of departure before I outline what key contributions, as small as they may be, National Treasury can do. So what we're going to require to structure and change and make sure that this economy can recover is mobilize all of South Africans to work together and ensure that this economy is brought into better performance. But in a small way, to unlock growth potential of the economy, our focus will be as a National Treasury, accelerating the implementation of the economic reconstruction and recovery plan, because we're making on the basis that government as a collective has agreed on a plan. Focus on growth and job-creating structural reforms. Maintaining fiscal sustainability, which in our view includes effectiveness and efficiency of spending, with a greater emphasis on capital expenditure than on consumption expenditure. I think we'll be dealing with this matter in detail in the medium-term budget policy statement at the appropriate time. And lastly, strengthening the capacity of the state. Recent announcements which demonstrate government's commitment to accelerate the implementation of structural reform to support growth include, among others, moving with speed to deal with bottlenecks blocking the release of spectrum. And I think there is a question to the Minister of Digital Communication if she will be able to expand in detail on that question. The work done to make Transnet Port Authority an independent subsidiary of Transnet. This will enhance competitiveness on our port system. We are in the process, together with our colleagues in Home Affairs, reviewing the visa regulation to attract skills and boost tourism. Progress on the implementation of a focused strategy on investment in water infrastructure to ensure that supply of water resources meets the demands. Parallel to that, we are mindful of the fact that there would be vulnerable communities. And then in terms of achieving sustainable relief for vulnerable households, the baseline budget for social assistance grant is around 205 billion rand for 2020 to 2023. The social wage, comprising a range of government interventions, including social services, free basic services, and others, is around 60% of total non-interest spending. This is about 1.5 trillion per annum. The National Treasury is working with the Presidency, the Department of Social Development, and other partners to consider various options for reducing the national poverty gap. This includes considering of what might replace the 350 social relief of distress or SRD grant. However, all options also need to be considered with respect to their affordability, as well as their fiscal and revenue implications, before a final decision can be made. I thank you.
The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Zet Mlenzana from the Chamber.
Thanks, Honorable Speaker. Minister, let's acknowledge that the many government interventions since last year have, as you are saying, provided relief to millions of workers, poor households, and even private companies in distress. We also acknowledge the fact that the work done to implement the structural reforms announced by the President is actually in place. Now, my question is, Honorable Minister, how have government in various ways looked into the stimulus packages so as to contribute to growth of sectors that create the most jobs, such as infrastructure-based programs, agriculture, and manufacturing? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think it is common cause, that's what the lawyers say. I'm not a lawyer. It is common cause that this government at the appropriate time made available in different forms about 10% of total GDP in the country to deal with the issues of the pandemic. Among other things was income support, supporting industries, and guarantees for small and medium enterprise. All those efforts were intended to support the affected industries and the vulnerable groups. And that is well known. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable A.N. Sarupan from the chamber.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Let me preface my remarks by saying that I'm grateful to hear that the new finance minister is interested in unlocking economic growth. And in that vein, I would like to ask the new finance minister if National Treasury has undertaken a study on the role the BEE policy plays in deterring foreign investments, hindering growth, and promoting corruption. If so, what were the findings? And if not, will he commit to undertaking such a study? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
To my knowledge, Madam Speaker, no such a study has been done. And to my knowledge, no one has placed before us evidence-based information suggesting that Black economic empowerment is impacting negatively on investment. Once that information is made available to us, evidence-based, we will be able to take the appropriate action. Thank you.
The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable N.F. Shivambu through the virtual platform. Honorable Shivambu.
Thank you, Natasha.
Honorable Shivambu, you are on the platform. It shows, and you seem to be muted. Please unmute. Please unmute.
I'm trying to unmute here, and there seems to be a problem, Speaker.
Thank you. Will you proceed? You are audible. When you said you unmuted, you were audible. Speak. Thank you. Okay.
The question, the follow-up question, much more pointedly, is that don't you think that the driving monetary policy and fiscal policy of the current government, which focuses on austerity measures of cutting budgets, is part of the contributing factors to limiting the role of the state in driving economic development? Because if you check the year-on-year growth of the GDP, the most shrinking sector of the economy is the government sector. Don't you think that instead of pursuing austerity measures, there must be a different approach in the manner in which we deal with economic growth, particularly in usage of fiscal policy in a manner that is much more sustainable? Because the fiscal policy thus far has been austerian, and that is very problematic in the manner in which you can drive a much more sustainable and impactful economic growth. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Shibambo. I suspect we are backing at the wrong tree at fiscal and monetary policies, which in this regard have not been the main culprit. If we were working on a government which has got a policy which is austerity, we would not be having 100 billion rand over the MTF on infrastructure, an average of about 30 billion rand on infrastructure per annum. Such a policy cannot, by all intent and purpose, be characterized as austerity measures. We must then say, why is it that we can't achieve the objectives we want to achieve, given that expenditure framework which is before us? So I do not share Honorable Shibambo's conclusion. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable E.M. Buthelezi through the virtual platform. Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Minister, then to answer, maybe to go to the question that you asked as to why we're not achieving what we're supposed to be achieving, the answer is that there's no agility in government's plans to meet the real life challenges and real-time challenges which may prevail from time to time. There is policy inconsistency, which has been the hallmark of successive ANC governments, as we have seen now. And therefore, it's quite clear from your response, Honorable Minister, that there's clearly no plan to deal with the challenges which prevail right now, save the isolated ad hoc interventions that you have, which are lacking clarity in themselves. So the question then becomes, Minister, what is the plan? When can we expect the plan in order to provide economic certainty and economic clarity on the matter so that we can get the economy moving? Let's stop speaking from both sides of our mouths and actually get to the specifics of how to get this economy going. We've heard all this as one-liners before. Let's get to the real thing.
The Honorable Minister.
No, Madam Speaker, I suspect the honorable members, some of them forget easily. Government placed before this parliament the National Development Plan, which is being implemented from time to time in phases. So you can't say in that respect there's no plan. Let me put that as a first point. In addition to that, without ignoring the existing National Development Plan, this government responded to a specific crisis in addition to that plan by developing the recovery, reconstruction and recovery plan. So there are plans and they are in place and the government is pursuing them actively. Thank you.
I thank you, Honorable Minister. That brings us to the end of that question. We proceed. Question number 155 has been asked by the Honorable A.M. Sheikh Imam to the Minister of Finance.
Is that me again? Oh. Oh, my apologies, Madam Speaker. I thought there was a break between this question and another one. So let me come back.
Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I think as part of our commitment to ensuring value for money, we are intervening decisively to improve our procurement systems. We are strengthening the capacity of supply chain personnel We are working together with law enforcement agencies to bring to book all those involved in the acts of corruption. What are the immediate tasks we want to achieve? We'll be bringing before this parliament a single statute that deals with procurement. To ensure coherence in the procurement procedures, we'll be bringing before parliament as first place a public procurement bill. The second thing that public procurement bill will deal with is to appoint what is called a public procurement regulator to ensure and oversee the entire public procurement processes in government. The third element of that is data and transparency, which will consolidate all the information in all our financial systems across the government, across institutions, to ensure that there's transparency in the data procurement system, in the procurement. The fourth element will be to enhance compliance and enforcement mechanism. In this regard, we intend to intensify our collaboration with other law enforcement agencies, such as the Hawks, the NPA, and the Public Protector. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable A.M. Sheikh Imam through the virtual
Thank you.
platform.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and congratulations to you, Minister, on your appointment. Now, thank you for what you've just said, Minister. But I must advise you that it is not as easy as you explain. Politics at the moment is a very lucrative business. Political parties have a control over wherever they govern in local, provincial, and national spheres. They did decide who the CFOs are, the directors are, the municipal managers are. Let me also remind you, Minister, and I'd like you to advise on that. Even the quotation system where you need 5 quotations, I think, or 3, where there is a limit in terms of an X amount, you can rather go quotation rather than the tender system, that is being exploited to such an extent that if you add the volume, there's billions of rands lost in this country. What can you do currently, Minister, to put in place some standardized form of pricing so you can ensure that different spheres of government, right from the local government, are paying market-related prices? So that in the meantime, while you're putting other measures in place, we could try and save as much money as possible.
The Honorable Minister.
Let me agree with the Imam that this is not an easy task. Processes to undermine the procurement system are so embedded at all levels of government. Like him, I don't want to mislead this House and conclude that that's going to be an easy task. But it's going to require an effort and collaboration by all of us. There's no way that National Treasury can know what happens in a municipality, for argument's sake. That's going to require a collaboration of these members of parliament through their constituency offices and all of us. So that's the first thing, is the monitoring part of it. It's going to require all of us to work together in monitoring that. We are going to do our best, as I've indicated, to put up systems. Even before the procurement bill is in place, we're examining a number of steps to take in order to deal with this. Among other things, people hide with the issue that they're providing this issue to small and medium enterprise. We are looking at a different dispensation, how we are going to manage the procurement process for small and medium enterprise, so that it should not be confused with the broader procurement of the state where corruption takes place. In this regard, we'll be able again in the medium-term budget policy statement to clarify that. Thanks, Madam Speaker.
The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Zet Ngomo through the virtual platform. Honorable Speaker.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
Honorable-
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Minister, as part of the reform process and building a capable developmental state, has the National Treasury and government considered the possibility of insourcing some of the services that have been put out on tender in order to curb the cancer of corruption and loss of public resources? If not, why not? And if yes, Minister, could you provide a brief overview of the details? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
The overriding consideration must be what is the best effective and efficient way of utilizing government resources? That should be the overriding consideration. Having done that, we then must pose the question, which of those services are better placed and insourced in the state to give effect to that overriding consideration of effective and efficient use of state resources? And that is what we will be doing and doing an evaluation from time to time. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable D.T. George Chamber.
Thank you, Speaker. The Minister mentioned that government has been working with prosecution authorities to pursue criminals who steal the people's money. Government has been talking about fighting corruption for decades. Year after year, SCOPA reports hundreds of billions in fruitless and wasteful expenditure and irregular expenditure, and nothing gets done about it. The National Treasury is mandated to ensure that the people's money is spent appropriately and properly accounted for. They've not been able to do this. So-called prosecutions never get anywhere. Minister, how many individuals or company directors have actually been prosecuted and jailed for stealing the people's money? If none, why not? And if so, will you make a list available of those prosecuted and or jailed so that the people can see that action is actually being taken? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
I suspect, Honorable George, I don't know whether it's an election fever. He's asking the wrong question to the wrong minister. Let me illustrate this point. What we can do together with the presidency is to create a regulatory framework and provide information via different sources, including the State Capture Commission. For instance, the president has even made that easy even for cases that are going on now for the State Capture Commission is going on for the prosecuting authority to take the appropriate action. So from a treasury perspective, we've done what we could in terms of providing the information to the relevant authorities, including from the Financial Intelligence Center, Madam Speaker. We've made the information available. Now is for the right authorities who have got the power to arrest and prosecute to do that. Unfortunately, they do not fall under National Treasury. That's why I'm saying he's knocking at the wrong door. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable N.F. Shibambu through the virtual platform.
No, thank you very much, Speaker. I think my network is far much better now. I think the major focus and debate on procurement is in relation to its transformative role, particularly when it comes to microeconomics, in terms of how do you drive localization and industrial policy. Your own elections manifesto, as the dying ANC, says that you should allocate 30% of procurement to small and medium enterprises, but about 80% of all procurement by the state should be of locally made goods and products. Don't you think that now is the right time to amend the primary procurement legislations, particularly the PFMA and MFMA, to then emphasize the centrality of localization, because that is going to drive localization, industrial expansion, therefore job creation, reduction of poverty, and to some extent the narrowing of the inequalities between white people and black people who control the economy of South Africa today. So that is the issue that we have to look into. That can't we then deal much more substantially with the amendment of the primary procurement legislation, just instead of just making broad commitments?
Time up. We are beyond your. Honorable Shibambu, mute your mic. Thank you. The Honorable Minister.
Honorable Speaker, my mandate from the giant ANC and the party of the future is that one of the things I need to do in structuring the procurement reform is to take into account the reform initiatives which are critical, both to advance the interest of the press people and the interests of transformation in general. Among other things, if he talks about the macro economy, we will be, as I've indicated, we're tabling as part of the NTBC in the policy in November, I'm sorry. Among other things, we'll be saying, what is it that we need to do for micro enterprises? What is it that we need to do in order to advance the localization? Already in cabinet has already given the Minister of Finance, even before I came, and a task together with another minister to look into the final details of the localization program. Why is it failing? So that is the task I have for Mr. Shibambu from the giant ANC and the party of the future. I thank you.
But on point of order, Speaker, that is not the question. Is in relation to the procurement legislation. It's not about future plans. The issue is, are you going to amend the procurement legislation to enforce the localization component? That is the question.
The question has been answered in several ways. What my speaking here, Madam Speaker? I've said we're bringing a procurement bill before Parliament.
Honorable Minister.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, Madam Speaker.
Were not given an opportunity to speak. And Honorable Shibambu, I hope you will not repeat that in the House. Thank you. I now proceed. Thank you very much, Minister. That brings us to the end of that question. We proceed. Question number 182 has been asked by the Honorable Mashaule to the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The question is on renewable energy. To date, the department has completed procurement of 6,422 megawatts of renewable energy through 4 bidding rounds. As at the end of June 2021, 5,422 megawatts is already connected to the grid and is part of the energy supply. The department is in the process of procuring a further 6,800 megawatts of renewable energy from this proposal, 2,600 megawatts under bid window 5, which is being evaluated with preferred bidder announcement planned for the month of October 2021. The remainder of the 6,800 megawatts capacity is planned for procurement before the end of March 2022. In line with the Integrated Resource Plan 2019, additional renewable capacity will be released to ESCOM and municipality as and when requested, when requests for Section 24 determination are received. The biggest allocation for new generation capacity to be developed between now and the year 2030 is renewable energy. The Integrated Resource Plan 2019 provides for 14,400 megawatts of additional wind power, 6,000 megawatts of additional solar power, and 2,088 battery storage. Amendment of Schedule 2 of the Electricity Regulation Act is also deregulating procurement of embedded generation up to 100 megawatts. And there are many projections about it. I don't want to get into those projections. Analysis of the potential jobs in the renewable energy space show that large number of jobs will be created during manufacturing and construction phase. Obviously, the assumption is that manufacturing will be taking place in South Africa and not anywhere else. It is crucial for us as a country to maximize economic opportunities that come with the planned power generation capacity. The department is working with business, labor, and community representatives to develop localization and industrial plan that will make it possible for us to attract investment and develop local manufacturing capacity. And that is my answer to the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Matlaule through the visual platform.
No, thank you very much. It will be in the chamber, Chair.
Oh.
Thank you very much, Minister. What are some of the constraints relating to 1, fundability, 2, affordability, 3, and commercial viability that might inhibit the currently processed renewable energy projects, as well as the development of green energy industry in an integrated manner ahead of time? Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister.
What we should always take into account is that renewable energy is a relatively new technology in South Africa. And if you look to bid window 1, 2, 3, little bit to bid window 4, one of the issues was that it was expensive to build renewable energy. But I always argue that that was a subsidy for introducing a technology that was necessary in the economy. Therefore, it is not a cost rather than a premium paid for introducing a technology to the economy. So that is the issue. The second inhibiting factor is the fact that components of building renewable energy are manufactured outside of South Africa. That's inhibiting in the sense that it doesn't give South Africa optimal benefit of the technology. And lastly, it is the fact that it is still dominated by foreign companies, and we have a responsibility to ensure that there is increased participation of South Africans in the technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Mylem.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Minister, we welcome the recent bid window 5 of the Renewable Energy Independent Power Producers Procurement Program and the forthcoming bid windows 6 and 7 later this year and early next year. Of concern, however, is the backbone to which these IPPs must connect. We already know that the Northern Cape, which is arguably South Africa's sunniest province, is at maximum capacity for new connections. So my question, Minister, is what is being done to create the necessary grid infrastructure to accommodate new IPPs? And what steps will be taken to ensure the rapid conclusion of power purchase agreements with Eskom? Thank you.
Honorable Minister.
I would imagine that Honorable Mylem understand that grid development is falling under the Department of Public Enterprise. So we all understand the fact that at this point in time, the plenty of sun and wind in the Northern Cape is something that was not anticipated, and therefore Eskom is nudged to build additional grid capacity in the Northern Cape. And I cannot give you and say this is the plan because it is in another ministry. But ESCOM is in discussion with all of us to increase the grid capacity in the Northern Cape.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable P. Matokwe.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Minister, the fixation with independent power producers is ruining ESCOM and offers no credible energy security prospects for the country. ESCOM is paying more to IPPs than it is making from selling this electricity. And besides, there is no fully industrialized country today that is exclusively reliant on this type of energy. What initiatives are you taking to make sure that proven forms of energy generation are sourced for the country? And comparatively, how much do these proven sources of energy cost compared to the IPPs?
Honorable Minister, thank you, member. Order, honorable members.
Again, I will repeat this, that ESCOM is in DPE. IPPs are in energy. And the issue is IPPs generate supplementary energy to the shortfalls of the old monopoly supply of energy called ESCOM. So it's a supplementary program. And we're taking it very serious. And Honorable Madoka says there's no country that is exclusively dependent on renewables or IPPs. The reality of the matter is that over 70% of energy is still generated by ESCOM. So there can be no exclusive reliance on IPPs at this stage, because more than 7% is an ESCOM. IPPs generate less than 10% of energy for South Africa. Obviously, the cost, I agree with her, that it is cost, as I explained earlier. I take that as a premium paid to attract a technology that is going to be needed a lot more into the future. And that's where we are. So IPPs are supplementing ESCOM, and we are having a clear program of supplementing ESCOM. And that's why I have the time. One of the issues that I normally get rebuked for is to say to ESCOM, when you come with a very loud program of closing coal power station, please give us a clear build program to replace that energy capacity. Because if we don't do that, you are making us excited that we'll move to a cleaner energy, but the reality of the matter is that we need assurance as well for security of energy supply. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Shangwa.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Minister, you've lamented twice now in your responses about ESCOM not being.
Honorable members. Honorable Shangwa, please address me.
So, Chair, the minister has lamented twice now in his responses on the issues around ESCOM being housed in DPE, and then, of course, him dealing with 30% of the energy supply. So, Minister, have you given consideration to making presentations to the President to have ESCOM moved to your ministry to ensure consistency and integration of your programs? Because ultimately and fundamentally, you are the one responsible for energy. And as things stand now, you are the stepchild or the bridesmaid to DPE and the programs they make with ESCOM, and then you have to play second fiddle. This is a serious fundamental policy question for the purposes of an energy supply to the country that will have coherence. Thank you, Chair.
The Honorable Minister. Thank you, Member.
One of the most important principles in governance is the ability to cooperate. It doesn't matter how many ministers you are. That's why I can give you answers on ESCOM without lamenting. but explaining where it is located. But I give you answers on ESCOM. And therefore, I don't think that is the major issue. The major issue is whether we coordinate our work. And therefore, there's no need for me to go to the president and ask for ESCOM to come to my portfolio. The day ESCOM the day the president make that decision, he will make that decision. I think my options will be none on that. So I don't think that is the issue. The issue is ESCOM is in DPE like many other major SOEs. And therefore, a discussion of where these entities are located is a function of coordination with various ministries. It's quite a big challenge for the DPE than it is for me. But one of the other issues that you must remember, Honorable Shem, is that energy is not just electricity. Energy is a much bigger portfolio than just electricity. That's why when we talk of energy, we'll deal with issues like your petrol SA, we'll deal with the gas fires, we'll deal with shale gas, we'll deal with all range of other commodities in energy. So it is not just electricity. But half the time, many people believe that energy is electricity. It's much bigger than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We now move to question number 195, which has been asked by the Honorable JRP Lorimer to the Mineral Resources and Energy, the Minister. Honorable Minister.
I always get worried about Honorable Lorimer, about transformation. Always worry me because he has this mentality that transformation scares investment, basically assuming that investors fear investing where there is black investment. It's a terrible thinking. South Africa has a history. We're from apartheid. And therefore, there is a responsibility on our part to equalize society. And I don't think we should be apologetic about that. Mining is doing relatively well currently, despite the fact that we insist on BEE targets and transformation targets. But transformation is necessary as a long-term intervention, for us to coexist as a country, as people, irrespective of the color of our skin. So coexistence is a necessary mechanism of building a nation. So I don't think we should be scared of black investment and therefore make an assumption that if there's black investment, therefore investors will run for cover. There's no such color, money has no color. Once you invest there, investors coexist with you when your money is there.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable B. Lorimer. From the Visual.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, your assessment of my reasoning has nothing to do with race and everything to do with reality. I would be fascinated to know why you thought people were not investing in South Africa's mining industry, but that's not my question. My question, Minister, is if it can be showed that transformation requirements do have the effect of lowering employment, will the Minister be prepared to drop transformation measures and change the ANC's current mining policies?
Honorable Minister.
It's exactly my worry about Honorable Lorimer. He is so obsessed about racism that blacks are a scarecrow to investors. Mining industry is doing relatively well now. I can tell him that even shops that were closed in Marikana are now open because people who make money in mining do invest in mining. And the reality of the matter is that we should work together and invite investors to come to South Africa. And the reason that we've just finished exploration policy working with the Mineral Council is to attract investment into mining, working with the industry, not the DA, but working with the industry to attract more investment. And that's why it is quite a bold move to start and finish that exploration policy. So it is not a question of money coming in now. It is about long-term survival of a nation. And that nation includes the beneficiaries of BEE. I can tell you that in a research I did last year, I discovered that, for example, in employment equity, 9 big companies in the industry, not a single one has less than 50% of managers being black. So companies in the sector do not have this fear of black presence in the sector. It is an obsession of the DA. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Anne Swartz through the visual platform.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, arising from your response, Honourable Minister, there can be no doubt that the mining sector is facing various challenges that threaten its very viability beyond only the policies regarding transformation responded to in the question. This follows, or this includes, rife criminality, murder, and mayhem. What steps, Honourable Minister, will you take with the Honourable Police Minister to ward off what has been referred to as procurement mafia, illegal miners, and crime syndicates that seriously threaten the viability of the mining sector? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Minister, I'm sure you caught him very well.
I try to listen very carefully. The mining industry is facing many challenges, I agree. Illegal mining and illicit trading of mineral products and precious metals is a big problem. I'm sure the honorable member will be aware of the discussion that is there between our department and the Ministry of Police to try and set a specialized unit to deal with illegal mining and illicit trading of precious metals. And that is an effort to deal with this issue. But I can tell you that the mining industry, despite the challenges it is facing, is doing very well, is performing. Many say it is performing because of the price of commodities. Price of commodities are cyclical. They are good today. They may be very down this time next year. It's not the issue. The issue is whether the mining industry is managed properly. That's why when you assess the performance of mining, you don't only assess sales and profits. You also assess productivity of the sector compared to other time frames that are comparable. So if you compare that, mining is doing well in terms of production and is doing well in terms of sales. So we're quite excited with the performance of mining, including in the last quarterly reports that were released. It is doing well. I can also add that for the first time in a number of quarters, even energy, gas, and water has registered a positive contribution to the GDP this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable J. Wolmarans through the visual platform.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, and thank you, Honourable Minister, for the responses. Noting that the mining sector, the industry, and its value chain is an integral part of our economy. Can the values attached to broad-based Black empowerment and local procurement regulations in the mining sector accelerate minerals beneficiation, considering the skewed control and ownership of this sector? Thanks, Honourable Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Member. The Minister.
A beneficiation, thank you, Honorable Member, Honorable Chair. Beneficiation is value addition. I don't think it can be only be linked to BBEE. It is a function of the industry adding value to minerals. To me, the biggest issue with beneficiation as we sit here today is the price of electricity. And if the price of electricity continues to increase, when it is high, you put an additional 15% tariff on it, beneficiation will be actually be discouraged. I can tell you that there was at one point an export tariff added to minerals. And business people, all they did was to calculate the cost. If the cost of electricity and the cost of the tariff is higher than the tariff, people pay the tariff and export the mineral. And I think it's an issue that requires all of us in government to deal with an administered price called electricity price. And if we do that, we may make headways with beneficiation. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last opportunity to ask supplementary question is the Honorable A.M. Sheikh Imam through the virtual platform.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Minister, I think you'll agree with me, the purpose of broad-based economic empowerment was as a result of empowering those that have been disadvantaged as a result of the inequalities of the past. Would you perhaps be able to give us some facts as a result of implementing this, how has it advantaged? Remember, we've got 17,500 new black millionaires or multimillionaires that were created in South Africa. Could you tell us through this in the mining sector, how many poor blacks were empowered to the extent that they also benefited from this? And more importantly, how many smaller black businesses benefit from these that are employing many other people today in this country?
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
I can't give you exact numbers, Honorable Imam, but I can assure you that before the end of this year, in the Department of Justice, we're discussing possibility of a mining evening where we can physically assess the progress we're making, which is quite feasible. That's why I gave you the numbers of progress we've made in employment equity. We're looking into progress we're making in black economic empowerment. But I can tell you that we're making a lot of progress there. Without wanting to advertise names of companies, we have consolidated those companies, some into big companies. You know, when one company became a big supplier of Eskom, there was a big noise here that it is concentration. And we had to argue for that company and said it is concentration because it is black. When it is a white company, it is called a good company. It can't be like that. We must appreciate the fact that blacks must be big as well and compete. And we're making progress in that regard. Before the end of this year, Honorable Imam, we'll invite you, remind me to invite you. We're working on a mining evening where we're going to talk to big and small mining companies. One of the issues that occupies us as a department is being invited in mining areas for people to be given procurement opportunities. We've facilitated that with a number of companies, not the people who want to grab wealth. I'm talking of people who ask for procurement in the industry. We call CEOs, we bring them in, and they have a discussion. And progress is being made in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next question has been asked by the Honorable NF Shivambu to the Minister of Finance. The Honorable Minister.
Honorable Chairperson, the process of appointing the board of PIC, including the chairperson of that board, is underway. The process should be finalized by the 30th of November at the latest. That's what we can give Mr. Shivambo at the moment.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Anaf Shivambu.
No, thank you very much, House Chair. That is not the question that we have asked the Minister of Finance. The question is very clear in terms of what should happen. There is an act that guides the appointment of the PIC, which specifies that who must be chairperson and who else must composite that particular board. And the recently outgone Minister of Finance had been operating on the basis of interim boards, of even a chairperson who is concurrently chairing a board of a private bank elsewhere. Like Royal Khoza is a chairperson of Discovery Bank in terms of what happens. And there is no way that there can be conflict between a chairperson of a very important institution like the PIC still presiding over presiding over the private bank. So that is one of the issues that are dealing with that. Are you going to comply with the prescripts of the PIC? Because that is what law, that is what we should have responded to, instead of saying that we are going to appoint a board in November and everything. That is what we've asked. We have never asked you that. We have asked you whether you're going to comply with a certain section in the PIC Act in terms of appointment of the PIC board, particularly its composition of who must be there and who must not be there.
It is a pity.
Honorable Minister.
The question posed or asked by Mr. Shivambo says, by what date does he intend to appoint the chairperson of the board of the Public Investment Corporation in terms of the specified act? My answer to Honorable, by what date? I said by the 30th of November in response to his question. Here's what he seems to be interested in one part of that act. That act creates an architecture which is new, which says which constituencies must be represented on the board. And the chairperson, amongst other things, will be the Deputy Minister of Finance or another Deputy Minister in the economic cluster. That's what that act says. We are therefore in the process of consultation with those constituencies which are mentioned in the act in order to give us the appropriate names. Why we're targeting the 30th of November is precisely because the term of the temporary board that existed ends on the 30th of November. That is what Mr. Shivambo does not, and I've answered this question, but he wants me to answer in a specific way, which I'm not going to do.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable E.D. Peters.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Minister, noting your response on the processes underway to appoint the board and chairperson of the PIC, could you elaborate more on the importance of good governance and the need for stability in an institution like the PIC? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
I'm definitely concerned about good governance in the PIC. The PIC is an important institution in the South African economy, and therefore its stability is quite critical for our economy, particularly the listed equities. So we will be doing all our best. The Act helps us even by defining what kind of quality of people that are going to be required to chair specific committees. For instance, an investment committee will be required to make sure that that person is a chartered accountant. So we are working hard without the consequences cited in that act, to ensure that we can provide a quality board which can assist us in providing with good governance in that institution. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you, Honorable. Thank you, Honorable Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable D.T. George.
Thank you, Chairperson. It is important that the PRC should be properly led by a competent board and chairperson. There is no doubt that the PRC is in crisis again. Recently, the Standing Committee on Finance had to listen to the mess that arose from one of the PRC's investment fiascos involving Iqbal Survey and others. The PRC also made a significant investment error with a client, and its explanation of what happened pointed to significant governance problems. Minister, you replied 30 November. What process will be followed to appoint the board and chairperson of the board? Will the appointments be processed under the ANC's cadre deployment program? And if so, how will the corporation ensure that the chairperson and board acts in the best interests of investors and not his or her political patrons and associates? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Minister.
I would have thought that the Honourable George was part of the people as a member of this House who crafted that act and how it should be constituted. There's no reference in that act to a cadre development committee. That act says Treasury will appoint X, the unions that have got bigger numbers will appoint 3, the depositor will appoint so much. All of those people are not cadre development. So what we are trying to achieve at the moment is that those who are responsible to appoint people to that board must give us quality people to ensure good governance. That's the process we are doing. Once that process is in place, we'll take the relevant and names to the cabinet for approval, as a recommendation to cabinet for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honourable E.M. Buthelezi through the virtual platform. Babstan.
Honorable Chairperson, thank you very much. Minister, of course, time will tell insofar as the deadline that you have given to us. But I think what that needs to run in tandem with, of course, is it's common cause that the PIC has had problems, and even more specifically in the recent past. So the question becomes, is the appointment process that you are currently seized with, coupled with you making an assessment of the problems, and maybe give us a sense of your reading of the state of health of the PIC, because that will be a key feature in driving the determinations of those who will be appointed onto the board. So we're really interested to get your assessment of how things are as well, and how that will influence the board that will be appointed. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Minister.
I must say, investments include taking risks. There's no doubt that the PIC has taken risk in some instances which were bad. No doubt about it. You see, it's in the nature of investment decisions. But if you look at the total portfolio of the PIC, and you look at the bad investment as a percentage of that total portfolio, is negligible. Something which is missing in the debate. If then you ask me about the state of health, I'm quite confident that the institution is healthy, got a nice balance sheet, its portfolio broadly is performing well. There is, however, difficulties which have associated with a lot of investigation with the party commission, with another commission, with current cases big of investigation, of necessity that create anxiety in the institution because no one knows who's being investigated, who's not investigated. That in itself is placing the institution in a difficult position because of low morale. The board that we've got to appoint has got to make sure that it can change the morale of the staff of the PIC to be able to perform their tasks moving forward. I'm quite convinced that the PIC is in a healthy state. It has gone through its challenges and is beginning to recover. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Question number 177 has been asked by the Honorable PM Manele to the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies. I've been informed that the Minister will be answering questions through the virtual platform. The Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister. Unmute, please.
Thank you, Chairperson. On the question that has been asked around what have we done to get the post office to work during those that were affected by the looting, we need to indicate that the damage at the branches that were looted have been assessed, and where minimal damages existed, operations continued. In some instances, manual processes have been put in place to ensure continuation of services. Where there was more serious damage, clients have been advised of the nearest branch where services could be obtained. In some instances, additional cash pay points have been arranged to accommodate social grants beneficiaries where no alternative facilities were available. And this is in addition of the option to use automated teller machines, commonly known as ATMs. Support together with SAS have also developed a system whereby beneficiaries of the SRD grant, the 350 ones, are paid on specific days of the week according to the last 3 digits of their identity document numbers to reduce the numbers and manage the queues. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable P. Manele.
Thanks, House Chair. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for a response that is reassuring to South Africans that the services would still continue post the crisis that we have experienced. May I then ask a follow-up question, Honorable Minister, as to what plans are in place to ensure the sustainability of the post office in the future, given the separation of the post bank and its contribution negatively to the post office? I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chair. We are discussing with the post office on the post office of tomorrow. They have given us a proposal which we are considering, and we're going to workshop with them so that we finalize that, and then we'll go to cabinet on that post office of tomorrow. And this will coincide with the amendment of the SAPO bill, so that we can then have start to work towards the post office of tomorrow, together with the support of the National Assembly in terms of processing the amendments to enable that post office of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable V. Pambo through the visual platform.
Chairperson, I will be taking the question of the Honorable Pambo.
Okay, go ahead, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, the South African Post Office have been in trouble long before the riots. It have been running at a loss for the past 10 years and have been had branches across the country closed, depriving millions of people of the means of communication. Part of the reasons for the loss is that it has allowed private companies to deliver parcels of 1 kg or less, even though the Postal Services Act states that the delivery of these parcels must be monopolized by the post office. Why have you allowed private companies to eat away the business of the post office in spite of what the legislation says, Minister. Thank you.
Thank you, House Chair. I'm sure the honorable member is aware that the small private players who came into the space of the post office came into the space after the prolonged strikes at the post office, which deprived South Africans of postal services. And in business and in nature, there is no vacuum. Small businesses came in and made a living there. The responsibility that we are confronted with, as assigned with this responsibility of steering the SAPO ship, is to not reverse the tide and destroy small businesses who are participating, but is to reposition the post office to play a critical role, and that's why the amendment in the logistics space, but also in the services space. When government is moving to online services from the work that we are doing in another sector, and will come to this house and explain what we are doing to get government to online services. The post office, which has the largest reach of any government institution in the country, should serve as those hubs. In addition, through the Department of Small Business Development, their agency CEDA, they've been working on digital hubs and centers of entrepreneurships and technology hubs in rural areas. And the post office, where it's located with the network that is already in place, can be used for those digital hubs and ensure that they assist small businesses to run their businesses from there, but also transfer goods of the small businesses, parcels of small businesses from one point to the other because of the network that they have. So the participation of small players does not preclude the revitalization and repositioning of the post office to continue playing a critical role in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Chair, on a point of order, I think there's some form of misleading in the answering of the minister to my question.
Honorable Ntangwene, I have not yet given you permission. I have just recognized you. What is your point of order?
Sir, the chair is misleading in answering of the question. If you can check to what I have asked pertaining to my question, and pertaining to the post office.
Honorable
Because
Ntangwene.
I have said, no, I'm coming to what you are saying. I don't know what is this. Is there a minute or is there minutes to points of orders? If there is, then you must tell me. Because I'm raising my point of order, you want to interject me. You want me to do my point of order within 5 seconds. What is this now?
Honorable Ntangwene, I'm definitely sure that you know that you are out of order. We cannot have a conversation between yourselves and the minister. Please
okay, that you have misled the house, sir.
Don't do that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Me and I will do it on another time. She has misled the house. That is your point of order. That's fine. Thank you.
You're the one who's misleading the house.
On a point of order, Chair.
Honorable Minister, what's your point of order?
The point of order is that the honorable member cannot say the minister misled the House. She would have to provide substantive evidence of that. And unless she has such evidence, she should withdraw that particular statement. Thank you, Chairperson.
But I was not done to say what I wanted to say, the Honorable Naledi. Your chairperson interrupted me.
Honorable Ntangwene, can you allow the House to proceed with dignity? Could you please? The Honorable Minister Pando has raised a point of order and which is sustained. Could you please withdraw the statement that the minister is misleading the House? Could you please withdraw that, Honorable Member?
Honorable Chair, with due respect, I wanted to raise the point of order to substantively prove to you where the minister is lying. You interrupted me.
Honorable
But
Member.
I will withdraw for the sake of progress, because you are the chair and you will want to remove me because that is your power that you are having now. I will withdraw what I said, but I will prove to the minister that she's lying.
Member, please. Honorable Ntangwene.
I've withdrawn, Chair.
Honorable Ntangwene,
I've
Please.
withdrawn, Chair. I've withdrawn, my good Chair. I've withdrawn.
Okay, siyabonga.
Ndiyaxolisa.
Sicela ukuqhubeka nomsebenzi, please. Well, the order is sustained, Honorable Panda. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Sheikh Imam. Am I right? Is it Majoseph? Oh, Honorable Majoseph from the IFP.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. In addition to difficulties of delivering poverty relief grants that were highlighted in question 177, Roman figure 2, a study conducted at the University of Cape Town Sociology Department showed that rural beneficiaries of social grants can spend up to 6% of their cash transfers on traveling to access the funds and fees such as charges from ATMs. Which specific measures have been put in place to ensure that these challenges will not apply to recipients of poverty relief grants, especially those residing in remote areas? Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable. It's indeed true that majority of beneficiaries of social grants spend bulk of their money on traveling to get access to social grants. And part of the use of the post office is because it's available across the country, and therefore the efficient services that must be provided at the post office becomes critical. But part of the other measures that have been put in place is to make sure that beneficiaries of social grants can have access to their grants through ATMs which are in their locality. And what we are working on the Post Office of the Future, together with the Department of Social Development and SASSA, is to make sure that even spaza shops in our localities can be able to have machines that will allow them to dispense social grants and through as a channel for the Post Office. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable M. Sheikh Imam.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Minister, I don't want to sound like a stuck record and complaining. There is no doubt that our people do experience great difficulty at some of the post offices. I've seen that myself. We do have challenges. I think my question is, when can you do some audit of these post offices and see exactly for yourself some of the challenges which might not necessarily be, as a result of poor management or anything. But I think it's the issue of technology, the number of people that go there, so there's a whole host of problems. The problems exist. All I want to know, Minister, what can we do more than what we're doing to make things easier for our people? I know you spoke about ATMs. There's also a cost factor attached to that. Maybe some ATMs outside the post office, or where people don't have to pay ATM fees. But some new measures to try and make it easier, particularly for the most vulnerable and the elderly. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chair, and thank you for the question. And it's indeed that there are challenges in the post office that are experienced by our people daily. It is for that reason that we have engaged with the post office on the post office of tomorrow. As soon as we finalize that, which will be in this year, we'll come and share the details with this House when Cabinet has approved in terms of what are those measures that we are planning to undertake. And we'll have to have an engagement with the National Treasury because indeed they have cost factors and they must be budgeted for. But within the resources that will be available within the portfolio, we should be able to prioritize those that we can do immediately, but that should be in line with the post office of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Question number 175 has been asked by the Honorable M.L. Tunjwa to the Minister of Employment and Labor. I've been informed that the Minister will be answering questions through the virtual platform. The Honorable Minister. The Honorable Minister.
My apologies. My apologies, Chair. I was talking to myself. Thanks, Thanks for the question from Honorable Dundo. Well, the current civil unrest has left massive duties. Amongst them are the data collection, gathering of information, repairing of the damaged properties, and the whole range of crucial interventions that have been made, especially to assist the displaced workers. As much as some information is already available and a number of interventions undertaken, but it remains true that a lot of work still needs to be done. As work continues, we might see more, as indicated by the Minister of Finance. There is funding that we have set aside in the form of the relief scheme to assist the workers affected by the unrest. This relief scheme has been gazetted as the Destroyed, Affected, or Looted Workplaces, the Temporary Financial Relief Scheme. The online link or portal has been developed and started working from the 25th of August 2021. All affected employers are therefore encouraged to apply. The Minister and Deputy Minister, as well as senior management of the Department of Employment and Labour, have hosted more than 7 information sessions throughout the affected provinces, addressing the employers and the employees on the benefits of the relief scheme. And the Department of Employment and Labour administers also construction regulations, which require that a construction works permit or be issued to companies that want to undertake building. Under normal circumstances, the process takes about 30 days, and currently, given the urgency to bring the economy back to the rails, the issuing of the construction works permit to construction companies is customized that it takes not more than 15 days. Productivity South Africa has been offering its services, particularly to small businesses, to introduce new turnaround strategies, workplace change and productivity improvements in their establishment, information on interventions that exist within government that they can access to obtain relief and assistance to their employees. So this relief scheme requires physical verification by the Department of Employment and Labour officials to the looted, affected or destroyed workplaces prior to the release of payment by the UIF. Because of the past experiences, a lot of fraud, we are physically verifying this. And the KZN province has already established unrest teams to work out this physical verification throughout the province. They are working with our officials, and this process of verification has already begun. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Dunjwa from the chair.
Ngosisihlalo, masibulele ngqongqoshe. Amava ethu ngesebe leloko kokuba kuzo zonke inzame enithi nizenze, kodwa inyawo zona niyazirhuqa. Abasebenzi banalo mava. Sifuna ukuqonda ke ngqongqoshe ukuba kwezi provinces bezifunyanwe lolu dushe nezi zidube-dube, uza kubenza abasebenzi nabantu base-South Africa babe nalo na ithemba lokokuba kule meko abakuyo ngoku isebe alizurhuqa inyawo. Okwesibini, masibulele into kokuba kwezokwakha xa ninika ngoku imvume zokuba kwenziwe ezo zinto, niye nayicutha iintsuku, nenza iintsuku zayi-15. Singaqiniseka kanjani into kokuba nizawukwazi ukuyigcina loo nto ngokwabelungu kukuthi how consistent and committed will those permits be really issued in 15 days? Ndiyabulela.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I know that the delays of money are frustrating and frustrating all of us. It is worse with the people waiting for the relief monies. And honorable members, we operate in the space of employer-employee relationship. There ought to be a link between the employer and the employee, and that link must extend also to us. And all claims that get sent to our entities, such as the UF, they must clearly demonstrate the existence of this link. Where we are able to see clearly that the chain that connects the employer and the employee claims gets settled within no time, we have to do that. And let me just say this, for purposes of information, 80% of the total UIF benefits is for unemployment benefit and 20% for maternity, illness, adoption, commission, death benefits. So for all benefits, what is required is the valid application, valid banking details, and the last 4 years complete employment history declared to the UIF before the client is retrenched or dismissed, and maternity, adoption, and sick leave. So 95% of the delays are caused by no or incomplete employment history, which is critical for the claims. Otherwise, we would end up violating the very, very same rules if we don't insist on that. When employees or workers submit applications for benefits and verification is done on the UIF database, the following is found, which causes the delays in both instances. The employee was never declared to the UIF by the employer or no employment history. Employment history in the UIF database also becomes a problem. That's normally the problem which faces us. But we can assure, as you are saying, that we are going to try by all means to stick to what we are promising. Thank you.
Sabonga Ngongoshe. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Kado through the virtual platform.
Thanks, Chairperson. Minister, we know that the violence and looting in KZN and Gauteng were triggered because the ANC is a party at war with itself. ANC factions are happy to burn and destroy economic infrastructure and plunge communities into misery if it means getting Jacob Zuma out of jail. But there are also deeper causes behind the unrest, like poverty and structural unemployment. When is your government going to change labour laws and deregulate the labour market so that millions of low-skilled workers can be absorbed into employment?
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Minister.
I would not want to go back into the issues of the causes of violence. There's been a lot of debate in relation to this. It's a fact that also the issue of high unemployment, the issue of poverty and inequality has contributed to this, but it's no justification for the unrest. But remember that what you're talking about, Honorable Kadu, that's the legacy of apartheid, which we're dealing with today in this country. And the issue of changing the labor laws, we're not sure why should we change the labor laws. At this stage, there's nothing which has been put which is convincing that we need to change the labor laws. And our argument is always very simple. When these laws were designed, it was to protect the rights of the workers, and the workers whose rights were denied by the apartheid regime. I'm talking about the basic rights for the workers, the right to organize, the right to collective bargaining, the right to negotiate, and the right to fair dispute and resolution mechanism, including the right to strike. These are the fundamental rights in the constitution of this country. I don't know, what do you want to be amended in those rights. So we must talk about the rights of both the employer and the employees. So the employers have the rights, the employees also must have the rights. So unless something convincing is put on the table, we can be able to look into that matter. And then we have discussions. Put the matter on the table and then we have discussions. Thus far, we are not yet convinced. We just hear a lot of noises.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Mponto through the virtual platform.
Thanks, Chairperson. Minister, the unrest in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng started off with the strike by truck drivers protesting for a number of concerns relating to their work environment. Have you met with the representatives of these drivers to fully understand what their concerns are? If you have, what are you doing to ensure that the trucking industry is able to function peacefully? You have just alluded to the relief schemes and the unrest schemes. Are truck drivers also considered in those schemes? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Honorable Member, Honorable Mkonto, you'd remember that this issue started some time back, about 3 years back. And there have been engagements with the recognized union, with the unrecognized unions, which have just emerged in the industry. And 4 ministries have engaged: Minister of Police, Minister of Transport, Minister of Home Affairs, together with Employment and Labor. They've engaged with this, together with the Premier of KZN, where it started. It spread also to Gauteng and even Mpumalanga. And what has happened, we have been able to engage with them, but led by Employment and Labor, we've decided to form the various provincial forums where we engage at the lowest level, at the grassroots level, with these unions. And we are engaging with them. We have indicated to them one of the ways of dealing with this particular matter is for us to fast track the issue of the labor migration policy in this country, where we're not just looking at the trucking industry, we're looking at the different sectors. We're looking at agriculture, the security industry, the retail. So we're looking at the hospitality and so on. So we will be able to come up with the proposals. And you are correct. When we're dealing with the issue of the unrest, we are also looking at all the affected industries in this regard. Even the trucking industries who have been affected. But remember, we are not only dealing with this matter of the relief alone. There are various schemes by the different departments. Small business has the various relief schemes. And the DTIC also has some of the relief schemes. So we are looking into all the various industries and how we enter into that. And we are coordinating and integrating our approaches.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Dina.
Thank you, House Chair. Honorable Minister, you stated that delays with UIF payments are caused by insufficient information. Delays can also obviously be caused if the employer did not pay over employees' UIF contributions, as you know. Now, Inspection and Enforcement Services is tasked with ensuring that labour legislation is adhered to by all employers in the country. In light of this, can you please confirm whether or not Inspection and Enforcement Services has intervened at Luthuli House since the ANC has allegedly failed to pay salaries for a number of months, and even worse, failed to pay over third-party deductions such as UIF, SARS, and the employees' pension fund? And if not, which would be very unacceptable, then why not? Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
once we know that the matter is in the media, but once the organized workers or the workers as individuals bring the matters to our various offices, definitely we will have to enter into that particular space and understand exactly the nature of the dispute, but we can't jump on the basis of the media reports. We have to ensure that we follow the procedures in dealing with those issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. That was the last opportunity for that question. The next one is number 184, which has been asked by the Honorable PMP Modise to the Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Honorable Modise, in terms of preparing for the upcoming climate change conference in Glasgow in November this year, there are three aspects where we need to do preparatory work. The first is on our contribution to mitigating greenhouse gas emissions. The second is progress we have made with regard to adaptation. And the third is the way in which we are mobilizing resources and other mechanisms so that we have the means of implementation. With regard to our contribution to reducing greenhouse gases, our country is committed to submitting a revised nationally determined contribution to the United Nations ahead of the meeting in Glasgow. We have already put out for public comment a draft revised NDC. We have received numerous comments, including from the Climate Commission, and we are busy at the moment taking the recommendations through the Cabinet system, and once this is concluded, we will be advising the public on our decisions. We have also put in place extensive architecture so that once the revised NDC has been adopted, we will be able to implement, and this includes sectoral targets, industry targets, as well as monitoring mechanisms, all of which will allow us as a country to reduce our contribution to greenhouse gases. Last year, Cabinet approved the National Adaptation Strategy, and we've worked extensively with provinces and all 44 district municipalities to ensure that we have local adaptation policies in place. And what we are now doing is mainstreaming these policies in terms of the municipal budgets, so that over a period of time we should have more climate-proof infrastructure and other mechanisms to deal with extreme weather events. Of course, in terms of means of implementation, our colleagues in Treasury have recently introduced the carbon tax. We receive a lot of finance through bilateral donations from a number of developed countries. We're currently exploring opportunities for multilateral and concessional financing so that we understand what is available to South African industry and state-owned entities in order that they are able to transition their productive processes to implement lower carbon technologies. Now, with regard to our concerns as we approach COP26, we obviously understand that the Paris Agreement came into full force in 2020. But in Madrid at COP25, we didn't finish the rule book. We haven't concluded on the carbon trading mechanisms. We haven't concluded Article 13 on reporting and transparency. We have yet to launch a program of work on the global goal of adaptation. And of course, we're very concerned about the fact that we need to see further commitments from developed countries to honor their obligations under the Paris Agreement to provide support and means of implementation to developing countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable PMP. Modise.
House Chairperson, thank you very much. Honorable Minister, it is expected that in the forthcoming COP26 climate conference to be held in Glasgow, national governments will be expected to report their nationally determined contributions, highlight their actions, their targets, their policies and measures, and governments aim to implement in response to climate change. What are some of the challenges that South Africa faces in terms of its own NDCs? What contributions is government receiving from both the private and the civil organizations? Is there adequate domestic and international support for South Africa's climate change action and strategy? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Modise. I think that you've more or less indicated what is the key challenge. And the key challenge is that the OECD has estimated that over the next 15 years, developing countries are going to require in the region of 3 to 4 trillion US dollars in order that they can adequately implement mitigation and adaptation measures in their countries. Now, to date, we have not yet seen adequate fulfillment of the pre-2020 obligation by developed countries to mobilize 100 billion US dollars per annum to support developing countries with mitigation and adaptation measures. Furthermore, the amount of finance that is available is primarily focused on mitigation measures, but we would understand that in our country and in most developing countries, climate change is already a reality, infrastructure is already being destroyed, and many developing countries are finding that the impact of extreme weather events is undermining their ability to fulfill the Sustainable Development Goals. So we believe that when the developed world talks about COP26 as the ambition COP, we agree that ambition is required. But we believe that there needs to be equal ambition for all three goals of the Paris Agreement: mitigation, adaptation, and means of finance from developed countries to developing countries. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable D.W. Bryan.
Thank you. South Africa is currently the 11th highest emitter of greenhouse gases, with Eskom the highest emitter. So far, this government's failed to ensure compliance with the NDCs, the nationally determined contributions. So how now will the minister ensure that the new carbon targets are achieved? She's mentioned sectoral targets and monitoring systems, but is she confident that the new measures are actually going to have consequences in terms of non-compliance, particularly for Eskom?
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Unfortunately, the Honorable Member has been poorly briefed in his supplementary question. The current NDCs allow an upper limit of 650 million tons of carbon dioxide per annum. South Africa is 60 million tons below that. So where you get your information that we haven't complied with the existing NDC, I have no idea. But allow me to assure you that we have done a great deal of research into low emissions pathways for the revised NDC that we will be presenting to the country. And we are confident that with the appropriate support, both domestically and internationally, we will be able to fulfill our obligations in terms of the Paris Agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Paulson through virtual platform.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, climate change poses a significant threat to South Africa's water resources, food security, health, infrastructure, and ecosystem services and biodiversity. In a country where people are poor and where levels of inequality are high, these effects of climate change are critical challenges to development. What is the government doing to gear up to improve its responses to the dire impact that climate change is having on the poor? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Paulson, for that question, because I think that it highlights a very important issue as we transition to a low carbon economy and a low emissions society. And that is the question of climate justice. And I think that what we understand when we talk about climate justice is, first of all, those who live in developing countries have contributed the least to greenhouse gas emissions, and yet they are carrying the heaviest burden. Let's think about Mozambique as an example. In 48 hours, a cyclone wiped out Beira and displaced thousands of people, destroyed hundreds of thousands of hectares of agricultural land. Does the Mozambican economy have the tax base to put it right? No. So where does the money come from for this issue? Let's take our own country. We understand that at the moment, 90% of our energy generation comes from coal. We understand that most of the units that are generating those coal-fired power stations are located in the province of Mpumalanga. We know that a range of power stations are due for decommissioning by the end of this decade. What will happen to the workers in those industries? And what will happen to the inhabitants of those communities who either work for Eskom or are suppliers, working for suppliers of Eskom? When we talk about the transition, we have to talk about a just transition. And what that means is that those workers and those communities cannot carry a disproportionate burden of the consequences of transitioning to a lower carbon footprint in our economy and in our society.
Thank you very much.
We have raised money to support Eskom's research into how this can be done to save jobs and livelihoods.
Thank you. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Singh.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Minister, the impact of climate change, not only on South Africa and Africa, but on the rest of the world, is well known by all of us. You've just cited a few examples, and we hear about massive earthquakes, we hear about arid areas, we hear about massive floods, where a number of lives are lost and infrastructure damaged. Now, you've also said, Honorable Minister, that you're concerned that the Paris Agreement is not being honored in terms of the financial arrangements and emission standards, because sometimes it's reported that the developed countries require us developing countries to have higher standards than them. Now, the question is, Honorable Minister, for Parliament, I mean, for all of us as members of Parliament, we talk about NDCs. We talk about nationally determined contributions. I mean, we in the Environmental Portfolio Committee know what that is. Will you sponsor a statement in Parliament where we can talk about this so all members of Parliament know what NDCs are and what the impacts of climate change are on society at large? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I would love nothing more than constant debates on this issue so that everyone in our society understands what is considered to be the greatest existential threat to humanity in our time. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We now move to question 201, which has been asked by the Honorable J. Kado to the Minister of Employment and Labor. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Our information is that there has indeed, in recent times, been a social conflict with the mining group and the local community, leading to disruptions. This arose out of the belief held by the community members, that Rio Tinto was not meeting certain social responsibility obligations. But there are also different groups on this particular matter, sometimes opposing one another. And COGTA and DMRE have been engaging with the parties, and the dispute has been resolved. But it's worth making the point, especially in the light of the recent court decisions, that companies must engage with local communities who have a major stake and say in what form development takes place in their areas. So development is very key. It's not like the old days where the mining companies must just get in and do as they wish. So the communities also have a stake. And our labor center in Richards Bay remains ready where there are employee or employer-employee matters that may warrant rendering of any services for our part. So at the moment, the dispute is more of a social dispute with the communities. That's the information we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Tado.
Thanks, Chairperson. I'm sorry, Minister, to hear that it doesn't sound like your department's been involved. But Rio Tinto isn't the only employer that's had to suspend operations or close shop because of the ANC's failure to ensure community safety or to deliver basic services. Clover decided to quit Lichtenburg because of huge financial losses due to water and electricity disruptions, as well as pothole-ridden roads, all caused by the local ANC government's incompetence and neglect. Minister, my question is, what is your department doing to stop thousands of job losses that are occurring in ANC-run municipalities across the country simply because the ANC can't deliver basic services?
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Well, thank you, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Kado. I think, first of all, it's important that you raise the question in relation to Rio Tinto in Richards Bay, and I've been able to tell you our information in relation to the nature of the crisis there. So you can't start bringing something else which is not relevant here. But as to what is happening in relation to the employment in the different areas, I think honorable members are approaching these challenges of unemployment in a piecemeal fashion is not assisting our cause at all. And again, moving away from implementing our well-considered plans, because the news of the day or of a quarter is causing more harm than good in our work of rebuilding the country. So this time around, we are refusing just to drop the plan that is underway and develop another plan because of what was projected has become actual. Let us remember that some of us lead by foresight and we benefit from that foresight. And now we're talking about the Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, which as was announced towards the end of 2020 by the President, and which significantly expanded the role of government in stimulating and supporting employment. And with it, the coordinating role of the Department of Employment and Labor. And this includes the greater engagement between the social partners, labor, employers, community, and even government via network. And we can tell you about what government is doing, the creation of the National Pathway Management Network to provide the support and opportunities for training, employment, and work experience in one of the initiatives that are already underway. And please do note that when we're talking about the National Pathway Management Network, because honorable members, the unemployment is a giant, or the unemployment giant is not going to be killed by the Department of Labor, even by government for that matter. But it's a collaboration, partnering, cooperating, and by making sure that there are those linkages. And I think if you go to the ERRT, you'll be able to get all the initiatives. Thank you.
Let's go. Let's start, Baba.
Ngiyabonga, Baba.
The third supplementary, the second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable S. Mudave from the chamber.
Thank you, House Chair. Honorable Minister, what is the magnitude of companies that approach your department and entities, giving this or that reason that lead them to develop plans to close businesses? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Well, at this stage, I would not be able to give the exact figures. But what we know is the CCMA has been inundated with the calls for the companies who are in distress. But at this stage, I would not be able to say what exactly is the magnitude. But it is very clear that the CCMA has to deal with a number of queries, and it has to start some of the processes. But also, we all do have the other entity called Productivity South Africa. Even Productivity South Africa seems to be very busy, but I can be able to give that information later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable C.N. Mkonto through the virtual platform.
Thanks, Chair. Minister, the employer-employee relationship that you just explained about is not the only factor to the closure of operations in Richards Bay. But the violent protests that led to the closure of operations at Richards Bay Minerals are as a result of unheard concerns by young people who feel excluded from employment opportunities, the social and labor plans of the Rio Tinto Group, as well as those of many other mining companies, are ambiguous and pay lip service to community upliftment and employment. What role have you played to ensure that the social and labor plans of the Rio Tinto Group, as well as those of other mining companies, offer credible and attainable measures for inclusion of surrounding communities in the economic activities of the mines, especially the inclusion of the youth? Thank you.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I think I did mention at the beginning that if you have such a conflict with the communities, it's very important that the companies become sensitive to the role of the communities. That's why I talked about social responsibility, but I went further to talk about the development of those communities. And the various companies need to understand now that we are talking not just them taking profits and going, it's about the development of those communities. That's why there must be engagement with those communities. That's why it's important that use of local labor, offering employment to the local people is very important. That is why in this particular space, the DMRE, together with the local, with COGTA, have been involved in trying to deal with these particular issues. And that's how I've answered this particular question. But I think the issue of social responsibility and development of the communities by big capital is coming into the fore now.
And in the whole world, it's very clear that there's a change on how they have to approach development in their communities where their companies are operating. And I think even with us, we need to put it in the agenda. We've already done so, and we are continuing to engage the different companies through the different departments. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Ngo.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Minister, Richards Bay Minerals is KwaZulu-Natal's largest taxpayer, which is experiencing complications with the extension of the life of the mine, which is projected to contribute billions to the local economy. Has this department made plans to intervene together with the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, DMRE, to ensure that the employment opportunities are not only secured for the youth, but are also protected should another force majeure come into effect?
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Honorable Ngobo, it's on this basis that I've said, in our information, DMRE and COGTA engage in that particular space to deal with the disruption. And we were told that partly the issues have been resolved. But if the issues become employer-employee issues, we are ready as the department, and we are monitoring that, to enter into that particular space and try and do some facilitation. And we normally do that facilitation through our CCMA. And also, if the company is getting into distress, we also use the Productivity South Africa to say, how do we save that company? So it's out of that concern that we cannot be able to lose such jobs and lose the tax contribution if that company goes, that the different departments have engaged into that particular space. So we are definitely engaging. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. We now move to question number 165, which has been asked by the Honorable P. Madokwe to the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy. Honorable Minister.
Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, I think what I need to do is to clarify that the department never had a different process for Car Powership South Africa as the bidder. It had one process. It approved 11 bidders as preferred bidders, and that's it. If a particular bidder has issues with environmental assessment, they will take that up. That's why it is not Department of Mineral Resources and Energy that appeal that decision. It is rather chambers of commerce on the coast that appeal it. So it is not the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. So the process that is outlined is for all the 11 bidders that were announced as successful bidders. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Madokwe, first supplementary question.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And also, in response to the minister, or rather to as a follow-up question, I feel like this question does not in any way insinuate that there was a specific process for car power ships, but we are interested in particularly with the developments that have happened to this particular bidder. But nonetheless, since Car Power Ship SA has sent an administrative appeal to the Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment, asking her to basically overrule the scientifically sound decision by her department to refuse to grant approval for these projects, is your department, Minister, in support of this appeal by the company? If yes, on what basis are you supporting the appeal, despite growing evidence of the disastrous greenhouse gases that would be dumped by the Powership project, particularly in Richards Bay?
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Unfortunately, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Matiokwe, the Ministry of Mineral Resources and Energy is not a spokesperson for car powership. We can't be a spokesperson for a company. All we do, we assess applications, we make a determination, we announce the outcomes. What happens beyond that is up to the companies to take up the issues. If they appeal the decision to the minister, the relevant minister will deal with that appeal. So you can't expect us to say, we're working with this company, we have approved 11 bidders, all those bidders, from where we stand, they complied with all the processes and they were granted as winning bidders. Beyond that, you can't expect us to speak for car powership and speak for any other bidder for that matter.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable G. Mathaula from the Chamber.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Minister. How else can we determine that Car Powership South Africa, as an operator of the world's largest floating power plant fleet of 25 power ships, would constitute an increase in energy utility? Since governmental activity is technocratic in nature and seldom involves the kind of democratic consultations between departments that can be concluded timelessly, what mechanisms does the department have in place to avoid pursuing its objective at the cost of the environment and human security? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members. Science is science. It's applied on these processes. But if an applicant comply with the stipulations, technology, finance, legal, and others, and they comply, our responsibility is to grant them the right to operate. Therefore, how you deal with that if there is a question about environmental effects and human costs, that issue is going to be tested scientifically. But the reality of the matter is that car powership operates in more than one country. And therefore, we are an exception in actually fearing it. But the scientific side of it, the environmental assessment, is done by a different department, and that department will be challenged by those who are not happy. And I think we must allow that process to take its course.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The third supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable KJ Maile.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, the decision by the Department of Forestry, Fisheries and Environment is just one of the setbacks in the reaching of financial closure by the various projects in the RMIPP. Others include obtaining the necessary permissions, licenses, and authorities and agreements with the National Ports Authority, NERSA, and Eskom. And I'm now informed that there are at least 2 legal challenges to the process. You have already extended the so-called hard deadline by which these projects must reach financial closure from the end of July this year to the end of September, and it's looking increasingly unlikely to be achieved. Will you concede that this project was poorly conceived and even more poorly implemented by your department and your ministry, and could almost be a textbook example of how not to go about emergency power generation?
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I think assumptions that are made that the department runs entities that applied and processed through its processes. It's an ill-informed assumption. We put up a request for proposal, companies put proposals, they are assessed on the same standard and use the same criteria, and if they meet those criteria, they're approved. So if it is considered ill-conceived, that should apply to all 11 entities. Yeah, so, but I don't hear any of you who are concerned raising the issue of the 11 contracts. All of you are jumping up and down on the basis of one contract, the car power ship, and my submission is, it is like any other of the 11 bidders. And any bidder who is not happy about a decision beyond the approval have a right to take that up and appeal it. South Africa is actually properly regulated, and there are legal entities to deal with all those issues.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The last opportunity to ask a supplementary question will be from Honorable Sangwa.
Ngiyathokoza sihlalo. Mhlonishwa ngqongqoshe. Esinye sezizathu esikhishwe umnyango wezemvelo wamahlathi nenhlanzi ukuthi bakhathazekile ngokuthi bangakhona ukuxoxisana okwanele nemiphakathi ethintekayo. Lokhu beze izathu zokuthi ke bangabavuli baqhubeke basebenze. Ngakho ke mhlonishwa ngqongqoshe, njengoba sazi ukuthi siphila esikhathini sezinto ezintsha nokuthi umthelela walezi zinto emphakathini yakithi mayingachaziwe futhi ingaziwa, sibeka abantu bakithi engcupheni yokuthi baphile phansi kwezimo ezizobalimaza. Umbuzo ukuthi nina njengomnyango obhekene nalezi indaba zamandla ney'ngozi ezingavela ngenxa yalawo mandla, yimuphi umsebenzi eniwenzayo ukuyoxusa nemiphakathi, ukubanikeza ulwazi, ukuphelekisa ngolwazi nokuqinisekisa ukuthi imiphakathi yakithi iyingxenye yey'nqumo ngokugcwele ngaphandle kokuthi zichazwe ngendlela abangeza ukuthi bakwazi ukuthi bayiqonde. Ngiyathokoza sihlalo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Sihlalo ohloniphekileyo. Xa senza ezi project kulaa mnyango wethu, sikhupha into okuyi-request for information. Companies zonke ziyibone, umphakathi uyibone. Sikhuphe i-Section 34 determination publicly. Sikhuphe i-request for proposals publicly. Now, bantu kumamela kakuthi masingaphela masenze public hearings. No, we must masenze public hearings. Even emergency procurement, that can be done, but you must appreciate that if we're going to do that, we must do that for bid window 5, for bid window 6, for bid window 7. And I think London is a stretch a process of mana umbani too far, particularly in the face of regular load shedding in society. So our view is that once we do that, we issue the same conditions. It looks suspicious for me when there's a big, loud noise on only one project out of 11. So once you do that, to me, you are raising suspicions of preconceived views about a project, because the 11, we approved them on the same conditions, we approved them on the same day, and they competed with others. And we must also expect to deal with the case of a company that actually challenged it in court, which is now dilly-dallying and want to retreat because instead of focusing on the processes, it sought to dent image of individuals who were involved. So all those issues are issues that we're looking at, but we are now having bid window 5 out for tenders. It will be assessed and will grant the winning bidders. Now, if your determination would be, we must go out and conduct public hearings, I don't know if we'll ever do what we are expected to do.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Question number 181 has been asked by the Honorable H. Tembu. to the Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chair, for the question. The recommendations from the Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution outline key elements to ready the nation for participation in the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and they package those interventions in three broad categories, namely, which is building a 4IR infrastructure, secondly, invest in human capital, and thirdly, to secure and avail data for innovation. Therefore, access to digital infrastructure by all is the precursor and cornerstone of ensuring participation in the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and work is underway to ensure a fast-tracked infrastructure rollout that will include partnerships with the private sector, including SMMEs, through phase 2 of the SA Connect project, and we have also proposed to industry an opportunities for us to work towards an open access network, an approach that will enable the adoption of co-location in network deployment, which can spread and fast-track the deployment of digital infrastructure, including in underserviced areas, but also in sparsely populated areas such as the Northern Cape. And through NEMISA, the department is finalizing the digital skills training program for SMMEs in partnership with the MICT CETA and CEDA, the entity of the Department of Small Business Development, in partnership with the Department of Higher Education and Training and the Centers of Entrepreneurships and Rapid Incubation and the digital hubs of CEDA at the TVET colleges and the universities. The department is working to ensure that SMMEs in townships and rural areas are supported to transition their businesses to digital, including using digital services. The minister is currently having engagements with mobile telecommunications operators with regard to drastic reduction of prices of data and their obligations towards access to public goods services such as education and health. The affordability of data will support the relevant innovations. However, the telecommunications, amongst other industries, must have access to high demand spectrum to provide efficient and affordable services. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. The first supplementary question will be asked by the Honorable Mtembu.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Thank you, Honorable Minister. What partnerships are in place with other sectors such as the education and labor sector to create programs that deliberately address the skills technological gap through reskilling and upskilling initiatives in order to align with the 4IR? Thank you, Honorable House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Minister.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Honorable House Chair. As I've indicated, through NEMISA, we have partnered with the MIC CETA to make sure that employers and employees are then put programs in place to reskill employees that will lose jobs in the sectors that are affected, more especially that the 4IR is not only affecting technology, it's also affecting how manufacturing takes place. Therefore, the employees in the manufacturing sector need to know how to participate in 3D printing or 3D manufacturing. They need to also know how to use robotics or train them on the management of robotics, the play of artificial intelligence, and just generally the Internet of Things. So that partnership that we are doing, we are making sure that is cornerstone to that. Our engagement with the Department of Labor will commence on contribution of the National Skills Fund towards the retraining of workers in sectors that are going to be rapidly impacted, more especially when we release the 5G spectrum. And I'm not talking only 4G, I'm talking 5G as we prepare the country for 6th and 7G spectrum. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The second supplementary question, Honorable Z. Mbele.
Ngiyabonga, Salonga Phambili. Minister, I think anyone who knows anything about tech innovation will understand that while it can be supported and bolstered by the government, it is really driven by or primarily dependent on government intervention. If anything, the fourth industrial revolution needs the government mostly to stay out of the way of tech innovators and to give tech entrepreneurs the freedom and enabling environments for them to take risks and make investments for the benefit of consumers and society at large. Now, clearly, we're not there yet, despite what you outlined in your previous responses. So my question is, what other practical measures would you, Minister, propose specifically to remove the barriers and red tape that are created by many policies of this ANC government in order to ensure that we fulfill those tech innovation and investment-friendly requirements for the 4IR success we all want, whether that is in urban or rural communities? Gebong.
The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. I've noticed that we are now in electioneering mode. Honorable Mbele is not correct in his assertion that government must stand aside. If government stands aside, it will mean there will not be release of high demand spectrum. It will mean that there will not be digital migration to make sure that we've got spectrum ready for the next generation. So Honorable Mbele, you must make your choices. We'll step aside and not push for the release of high demand spectrum, which means the telecommunications mobile operators who need the spectrum for them to support the economy, because they've carried the economy during the COVID-19, and we cannot reverse those gains. We need to continue in the spread. Those telecoms will need the 5G spectrum, they need the 6G spectrum, they need the 7G spectrum, because they've become the super highway. We're no longer dependent on the N1 to reach our markets. We are now dependent on the telecoms operators and the availability of spectrum to reach our markets for products. So government cannot stand aside. It's the ANC government's policy to make sure that the high demand spectrum is made available, and when it's made available, not only to telecom mobile operators, but to industry manufacturing, in mining, SMMEs who are offering services. And if we stand aside and not provide for those SMMEs, because majority of the innovators are not big companies, majority of the innovators are small players, are small innovators who we must make sure that they are enabled to participate as in the spectrum layer, to make sure that those services that are robotics, artificial intelligence, printing, Internet of Things can be provided, whether it's fintech or whether it's apps that they put every day up. They are supported and they have a platform to run in a cost-effective way when the data prices are affordable. If government stands aside, the price of data will remain unaffordable to majority. The people in the Northern Cape, the people of Limpopo, the people of deep rural KZN, the people of the Eastern Cape, the people of Mpumalanga and Northwest, the people of the rural areas of Free State will remain, and portions of the rural portions of the Western Cape, of Beaufort West and other areas will remain without access to the spectrum, without access to data, which is critical for innovations to take place. And therefore, we cannot, as government, stand aside. We'll do our best, and supported by the governing party, to make sure we deliver on cheaper data prices for the poor, cheaper data prices for a child in the rural areas, and access to high demand spectrum for industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Pambo, the third supplementary question. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. I'll be taking the question on behalf of Honorable Pambo.
Okay, go ahead, Honorable Member.
Minister, what tangible projects have you initiated to roll out fiber to rural areas and townships in order to enable young people in these areas to have access to the internet and stay connected to opportunities in the economy?
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Majosa. Oh, sorry. Honorable, the one who took the question. Is it? Oh, where am I? Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chair. I think it shows the time of day already where we are. Thank you, House Chair, and thank you to Honorable Tambo for the question. As I've indicated in my initial reply, we have approached industry. on open access networks, so that the deployment of fiber, we don't do multiple deployments in cities and densely populated areas, but we can make sure that there is deployments in rural areas. I'm engaging with telco operators on that, and also the industry players in terms of trenching for fiber. And with that, we are confident that within the month of October, we should be able to go to cabinet with a proposal on our move on open access network to make sure that we can reach the deepest of rural areas and enable the poor children of Wachpunda Marema, where I come from, and Chifudi, where my father comes from, to have access to fiber or connectivity for their education. And that even if we get to a fourth wave or a fifth wave of the coronavirus, the children will continue to learn from home. And we can declare as a country a percentage, an amount of data that must go to each household by the year 2025. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And the last supplementary question will be asked by Honorable Majosi.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Minister, has there been any consultation with ICASA relating to its decision of 30 August that the temporary radio frequency spectrum assigned to licensing will have to be returned to ICASA by no later than 30 November? Roman figure B, if so, what specific facts were taken into account to justify this decision by the authority, considering the reality that the fourth wave of the pandemic might arise soon? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair, for the question. And my response to that is that ICASA is independent from the department, and the account to Parliament will request the House to invite ICASA to go and explain for their decisions to then withdraw the temporary spectrum by 30 November. But on our part, we are engaging with industry, and should a third wave come through, we will make a policy directive to ensure that industry is not jeopardized to have spectrum. We are also engaging with industry in terms of their dependence on that spectrum, because when people are already traveling on the road, House Chair, you can't say now the road is closed, or you can't say the road is removed. We need to find a mechanism to say, how do industry continue to use spectrum as we finalize the allocation of spectrum? I'm sure members are aware of the decision of ICASA to abide by a court decision, and my response to say we are communicating with industry to find the best mechanism to the release of high demand spectrum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I think members have realized now that fatigue is taking its toll. The time allocated for the questions has expired. Outstanding replies received will be printed on handset. That concludes the business for the day. The House is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Recording stopped.
Thank you, Chair.